Hi folks, I just want to talk about the theologian Karl Barth. Karl Barth was a neo-orthodox theologian, and he kind of was tired of the liberal theology of the 19th century and wanted to go back to more of a biblical theology. He was not an inerrantist, which I don't agree with him. I'm an inerrantist. I believe the inspiration of the Bible. But if you want to understand the history of theology, you need to understand a little bit about Karl Barth. But if you want to be an academic theologian, someone who understands what's going on in theology today, you need to understand the intellectual roots of Karl Barth. And if you understand the intellectual roots of Karl Barth, you can understand the theological debates that are going on today. Now, a lot of Barthian scholars don't realize the intellectual foundation of Karl Barth. What I mean is, a lot of Karl Barth scholars they'll lecture on his theology because they've read his dogmatics, but that's not enough. It's really not enough to understand Barth just to read his works. You've got to go behind his works, and you've got to look at the things that he read and the lecturers that he studied under, and finally go through what they were saying and see how that impacted his theology. And most academic scholars in Karl Barth theology have not done the homework there. And most Barthian scholars think that they understand Barth. And I can tell you now that the vast majority of Barthian scholars do not understand Barth. And it's simply because they don't know the intellectual history of Karl Barth, how he was influenced by Hermann and all the various other scholars. Now, there is a general pattern and rhetoric within the academic world about Barth and how he became neo-orthodox and all the rest of it. But as you know, as a Barthian scholar, that's not good enough. You've got to go deeper, much, much deeper. And with this, I want to just introduce you to perhaps one of the best books on understanding the mind of Barth is Karl Barth's Critical Realist Dialectical Theology by Bruce L. McGormack. This book is absolutely brilliant. It is not this one. This is Barth's book, but Professor McGormack's book is absolutely amazing in its intricate detail of Barth's intellectual development, how he was influenced by Hermann, how he was well acquainted with Harnack's thinking, how he engaged with Adolf Schlatter, and I could go on and on and on. It's a massively detailed analysis of Karl Barth's thinking. And if you're a Barthian scholar today, you cannot, absolutely cannot ignore this biography. I remember when I was at seminary and I was listening to one of my lecturers lecture on Karl Barth, and I'd read this book, and my lecturer said XYZ about Karl Barth, and I was able to tell my lecturer, you're completely wrong. And my lecturer got absolutely angry with me. But there's no excuse. If you're going to understand a theologian, you've got to get behind what they're saying and look at their intellectual history. And so if you're going to be a Barthian scholar, you have to do that with Karl Barth. Okay? I remember that I read this book many, many years ago when I was at seminary. And it always stays in my mind even to this day. And it gave me a brilliant grounding in 19th century theology and the intellectual development of theology coming into the early 20th century. And I'll always be indebted to this book. It's a great book. So I'd encourage any Barthian scholars out there to go and read it. Thank you for listening, and take care.